and welcome to episode 4 of You May Not Agree With Us
But
podcast. I'm Eris Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
And tonight's podcast being brought to you in part by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. You never know when you're going to need a plumber, so you need to know 304-253-HELP, and also brought to you by Massey's Power Sport. Well, Eric, it's hard to believe that the first 3 weeks of the high school season's already gone, more than a third of the way through.
Yeah, the weeks just fly by when you're having fun, man, and been a lot of good action early on here in this football season.
So we'll recap the 4 county schools of Raleigh in Raleigh County, and we'll start with the game you and I broadcast on Video Productions, one of the better games in the state of West Virginia, and that was Parkersburg South's 35-19 victory over Beckley. And I don't know if you realize this, Eric, but when I was preparing for our podcast, that in the 3 weeks of the games that you and I broadcast, the visiting team has won every game.
Yeah, every team that has gone on the road has won. So
might be us.
It might be us, the traveling with them. But you know, that was a game for me that was it was two evenly matched teams, well played on both sides, and a couple breaks that Parkersburg South were able to capitalize on was the difference in the game.
Yeah, one of my big takes away, I felt Beckley played good enough that they could have beaten most teams Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Parkersburg South, if you would talk to them, they knew that Beckley was game. I mean, it was a nice crowd that night, Friday night, and I enjoyed broadcasting that game.
Yeah, the home opener, and it was a tense game. It was a 14-3 halftime lead for Parkersburg South. South got the lead out to 21-3. Beckley came roaring back, cut the lead to 21-11, got an onside kickoff, had all the momentum, and then they had a terrible penalty. And it seemed like from that point on, they threw the momentum back in Parkersburg South's favor.
And Parkersburg South, once again, capitalized on it. And I thought, as you stated, when it was 21-11, and Woodrow executed one of the best onside kicks you'll see, and they were able to come up with it, was driving the ball, got a personal foul, dead ball personal foul, too. So, I mean, it really took the air out of the Flying Eagles.
And you know, Eric, we talk about it all the time, and it's so real in all sports and in anything. Momentum is so real. And South had it, then Beckley got it, and then South got it back.
And you know what I liked about South too? They stayed the course, and in the third opening drive of the third quarter, they really just lined up, and I think they went at halftime and said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to line up, run straight at them." I think it was 7 plays.
It was a long drive, all
7 plays, like 69-yard drive,
like that,
and it was all runs. And I think that kind of really, Beckley battled back to get back in it, but I really think that was a statement drive of the game.
So Beckley loses its first game of the season. They go to 2-1. Parkersburg South with the win. They go up to 2-1. Shady, boy, they flexed their muscles. They got a big win on the road. They start their first 3 games on the road, and you'd like to be able to win all 3. But if you can go 2-1, I think Coach Curl-Certo is happy because they have a bye week this week. But they crushed Summers County 49-0.
Yeah, and that was on the heels of a comeback victory at James Monroe. And we stated anytime you can win down at James Monroe, I think that gave that team a lot of momentum, and playing without their starter still. I think and you got a bye week, so I think there's positive things ahead for this Shady Tiger team.
Yeah, because, you know, that's a big change. In years past, Coach Curl-Certo, for whatever reason, maybe it was scheduling, maybe he wanted this way or he couldn't get it any other way. They played 10 straight games, and then they had the bye week in week 11. But unfortunately, for the last 2 years, they haven't qualified for the playoffs, so they haven't really needed a bye week. But now, I think it's good. You play 3 games on the road. Now you get a bye week. I think the bye week comes at a right time for Shady.
A perfect time, because now you can get healed up. You probably have some bumps and bruises. Going on the road, I mean, everything is a lot different on the road. And with this team, I think he can come back, you know, give them a few days off and really, you know, go over some stuff that they need to work on. You know, they're probably in the film room, him and that great coaching staff that he has, and I think they'll be better for it.
Independence, they got a huge road victory. They beat Nicholas County on the road. That's the 3rd straight time they beat Nicholas County in Summersville. They beat them 41-14. And Independence, same way like Shady, they started the first 3 games on the road. They win 2 out of 3, and they come home this weekend.
Yeah, and Independence is growing up, you know, right in front of our eyes, because we know that they had a lot of new faces out there. And I think if you talk to Coach Lilly, the defense, the way they're playing, they gave up only 7 points. I think Nicholas County returned the interception along, you know, for a touchdown. So the defense is still clicking, and that's where you want to hang your hat on if you're going to win in playoff football, your defense.
And you're so right, Eric, because in 2 of the 3 games that Independence played, they have got an interception return for a touchdown. Even though they didn't beat Herbert Hoover, they got a pick 6, and they got a pick 6 Friday night in the win against Nicholas County.
And that teachable moment for them, though, that Herbert Hoover game was there for the taking. They really coughed up a lead late in that game. So I think they're probably they're peaking. They're trying to get playoff ready with this tough schedule still coming up.
Yeah, they got the home opener this Friday, and we'll talk about that in our next segment. We also take a look at Liberty. They went on the road. They lose to Mingo Central 46-14. I did get it confirmed that their quarterback, Jackson Workman, he had a break between his ankle and his knee. I guess, I'm not sure if it was the tibia or the fibia, but one of those he broke. More than likely, he's going to miss the remainder of the season. That's the freshman starting quarterback, the coach's son. And the backup, Shea, he did a really good job, but they went on the road and they came up short 46-14.
Yeah, but I think they'll be okay with the backup. He could start for a lot of teams. I mean, but they went with the young Workman kid. But it was sad to see. We knew he was injured because that's one tough kid, the Workman kid. And the way he went off the field, I thought it was something serious when it happened.
This podcast brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. You never know when you're going to need a plumber. And boy, when you need one, you don't know who to turn to. Well, you can turn to 304-253-HELP. It wants to make you holler, scream. You can scream help out the window, but you need to dial 304-253 in front of it so you can make sure Modley's will come and take care of you.
Modley's will take care of you. They're on the job. They answer all the calls, and they'll get to you as fast as they can.
And also Massey Power Sports. And now is a great time. It's almost hunting. Well, I guess it is some kind of hunting season. I know we hunt football, but other people like to go out in the woods. In fact, on the way over here to record this, I passed 4 deer almost in your driveway.
Hey, you better keep that. Keep that to yourself.
Well, yeah, because I'm sure people don't want to hunt in a residential area. But anyway, you can get on a 4-wheeler, go in the woods with Massey Power Sports. And like you said, I think on last week's podcast, you don't drag them deers out. You can put them on the Massey vehicle and take them out of the woods.
Hey, yeah, Massey will hook you up with a winch, put a winch on there, hook it to the deer, and that's easy work after the kill.
All right, take a look at some of the games this week. And Beckley looking to bounce back. Will be at home again. It'll be Beckley against Bluefield. Beckley 2-1, and Bluefield coming in with a little momentum. They came back and got a great win against Greenbrier East last Thursday.
A young Bluefield squad, and I think Bluefield's thinking, hey, we got a feather in our cap. We pulled one out, I guess a win away from the jaws of a loss because they were down big in the fourth quarter and able to rally and get that win. A last-second touchdown, I think, with 4 seconds to go, completed to cap the victory over Greenbrier East.
And Eric, there's not very many AA teams that have the schedule that Bluefield did. They started off against Graham, and Graham's been a power. Now, they might be AA in Virginia, but they probably translate to a 3A, maybe a 4A in West Virginia. So then they play Princeton, who is one of the favorites in 3A. Then you play a 3A, Greenbrier East. Now you're going to play a 4A in Beckley.
Well, they're kind of Bluefield has lived the part now that Independence is kind of going through. Good cycle players, good, well-coached team. Bluefield doesn't dodge anybody. Of course, Independence doesn't either, but Bluefield really doesn't. If you want to play them, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call Freddie Simon, and he'll get the boys on the bus and come to you and play.
Or he'll have you come to them. You're right. So that's going to be a big game for Beckley, and that'll be at Flying Eagle Stadium on Friday night. Of course, we talked about Shady earlier. They got a big win. This is their bye week, so a chance maybe to heal if they need some injuries, or maybe just kind of like recharge their battery, so to speak.
Do a lot of self-evaluations, I guess, on your bye week and what you can do as a coach and a player to get better for the rest of the season and being 2-1. And Coach Kulisirto, he told us that in our preview show that if he can come out 2-1, he'd be dang tickled with that. So I'm sure he is.
Yeah, and that's the word he used, dang tickled too,
That's
didn't
exactly
he?
what he said.
And here's another thing. I know that you can look, like a lot of coaches even watch some of our games to scout on video productions, or you can get, on Huddle. But something about if you're there live, and it also allows Coach Kulisirto to maybe go scout and these other coaches to scout some of their future opponents.
Yeah, go enjoy some Friday night lights, and I guarantee you they'll split up and go watch some future opponents Friday night.
The game you and I will have on video productions Friday night at Coal City, it'll be Scott 1-1 against Independence 2-1. Now, Scott had their bye week the first week of the season, so they got 10 straight games. But this feels like a playoff game. I mean, we're in week 4, and this is a real battle. And Independence, after being on the road for 3 weeks, the home opener, it should be a big crowd at Coal City on Friday night.
I guarantee you know the Sophia, Midway, Coal City area, they'll all fill the stadium. But this is I wouldn't say must win for Independence, but I think they'll play with a lot of urgency because you want to get to 3-1 because you have Oak Hill and Princeton looming on your schedule.
And you have Bluefield.
And you
on
have
that schedule.
Bluefield, and you never know what you're going to get with Bluefield. So you want to take care of business, and Scott's ready to come up the road and see what it's all about playing up in Coal City. But that's a tough venue to play at. I was trying to go through my head all the games we've done. I haven't seen them lose in 2 years.
No, and and to my knowledge, you could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Scott and Independence have ever played. If they have, I don't think they ever played at Coal City.
Yeah, I don't remember them ever being on the schedule. So this could be the first meeting of many to come. So let's hope it's Scott probably travels well from Madison. They'll probably come up here wanting to see what Independence is all about.
Yeah, and Scott has always been a playoff laden program over the years.
Yeah, they have. They're good in all sports. Their basketball team and football team usually goes hand in hand.
So we'll see if Liberty can bounce back this week. Liberty will be at home. They'll take on James Monroe. Each team is 1-2. Let's see if Liberty can get back in the win column with a win over James Monroe.
Yeah, and that'll be a tough battle for Liberty. They still have a young team as well, and James Monroe. They're trying to right that ship. They don't lose often at home, and I think they're still smarting over that Shady Spring loss.
So you figure the loser of this game is really going to be hurt and be 1-3 in the first 4.
Yeah, that's tough to make the playoffs. Starting out 1-3 like that.
This podcast brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. Whenever you need a plumber, you just dial them up 304-253-HELP, and also by Massey Power Sports. And Eric, as we take a look across the state of West Virginia and we look at maybe the biggest game in each class, and I was looking through the schedule today, and in 4A I kind of had a hard time, but I looked at this. Martinsburg 3-0 against Hedgesville 2-0. They're 2 undefeated teams, and Martinsburg so far have been dominant in their first 3 games.
Yeah, dominant, and they are a machine, well-oiled. Got their coach back that coached them, Dave Walker. Yeah. He's back, and he just picked up where he left off in the championship game. And these guys, anytime if you're up in that up north right there, they want to put a stranglehold on like the Hedgesvilles, the Washingtons, and all that. And I just think it's going to be really tough for Hedgesville to get a victory.
So we take a look in Class AAA, and this sounds like a playoff matchup. These are close teams that are close in proximity. Fairmont Senior against North Marion. Both teams 3-0, and both teams are been in the playoffs each of the last several years.
Yeah, championship game.
Yeah, and Fairmont has won championships, and North Marion. So this should be a battle. Each team 3-0.
Viewers can correct me if I'm wrong. This was the championship game last year.
49-48. Yeah.
And if you can remember, North Marion they kicked all evening, and they said we're going for 2 in the win. That was a gutsy call, and Fairmont was able to just keep them out of the end zone. So these teams, they'll be ready to battle Friday night.
Yeah, the game's at Husky Stadium. North Marion will be the home team. It'll be the Polar Bears against the Huskies. So you got Huskies, Polar Bears. Of course, Fairmont's in Marion County. They're close by. It's a big rivalry. Like you said, they played for the championship last year. This is really perhaps the biggest game in all of West Virginia.
Yeah, I think that will go down. Rematch of the championship. Everything on the line and bragging rights, until the playoffs.
And in AA, we already touched on this game. We'll talk about it again. It'll be Independence and Scott. You and I will broadcast the game on Video Productions. It kicks off at 7 o'clock. If you're planning on coming to the game, you better get there early. We think it's going to be a big crowd. Of course, you can come and watch the game. You can watch the game on your phone. Eric and I will broadcast the game. And Eric, I was very excited for the Beckley-Parkersburg South last week. I'm just as excited for Scott and Independence this week.
Yeah, and just as last week, the Beckley-Parkersburg game was everything we wanted. We knew it was going to be a good matchup. You had momentum shifts, great defense from both teams, great offense, for both teams. And I think Independence, they're excited to be at home. They always have a good crowd. That's one thing that Coach Lilly even talks about. That whole area, they really support the Patriots.
And I think when you get in a game like this, I think the wins the war up front. Yeah, you got to block, but I think on the defensive side of the ball, the team that can limit the other team from big plays has the best chance to win the game.
Yeah, anytime you can make a team continue to drive, they can make mistakes or whatever, and so forth. But I think Independence, they hang their hat on defense. They really want to, put the stranglehold on you, especially on the line of scrimmage. That's where Independence bread is buttered. They usually win the line of scrimmage in most games.
And in Class Single A, a battle of two undefeated teams. Webster County taking on Madonna, each team 3-0.
Yeah, the Highlanders right there. I mean, 3-0 for them. That's good early on. And the Madonna, is that weird to Madonna? Is it
Yes.
just Madonna? I mean,
The
back in our
Dons.
day,
The
the
Dons,
Dons.
yes.
They're perennial playoff team way back in the day. So it's just tradition up there. That will be a good matchup.
Yeah, good Catholic school.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that'll help them. May not hurt them. I don't know if it'll help them.
It didn't help
right?
Notre Dame 2 weeks ago.
No, but it
we
helped
won't
them.
talk about that.
Well, but it helped them. You know what? But what it did help them, it helped them Saturday because I think they're still scoring on Purdue the way New Orleans is still scoring on Dallas.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know I had to get that in there, right? You can tell we have fun. Eric being a Dallas fan, me a Notre Dame fan, we both went through our miseries in different ways with the loss.
I got kicked in the gut.
But the one thing about it, and you agree, in the NFL, you can afford certain losses because it's a long season and you can play your way in.
Yeah.
But in college, people sit in a room and determine whether they think you're good enough to be in the postseason or not.
It's the eyeball test in college. Like, think about this game. I know we're getting off the road
beaten
here,
path a little bit.
but just real quick,
Yeah.
Georgia squeaks out a win at Kentucky. And I
right.
think it's a quality win. You're on the road, a night game in the SEC. Nick Saban said those should count for 2 points. You know,
Right.
2 extra points for going.
Right.
If you went on the road anywhere,
And
it's a good
especially a
win.
conference game.
Exactly.
But on top of that, I don't know if you saw that, Texas overtook Georgia for the top spot in the AP poll.
Yeah, that Manning kid kind of stepped in and looked real
Of course,
good.
they
man.
were playing the Roadrunners. And
Yeah, was it Park?
Was it Park or Texas?
Yeah.
Texas, San Antonio.
Yeah.
But anyway, this next segment is brought to you by, as all of our segments are, brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP, Massey Power Sports. We'll talk a little college football, and I think for most West Virginia fans, and I spoke to your father-in-law at length today, and he's like, he said, like, West Virginia did everything right till the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yep.
I did not see it because Notre Dame
Great
was playing at the
assessment.
same time.
Great
and
assessment.
he said that Pitt found a way to win the game, and then, of course, the Pitt coach, Pat Narduzzi, he complained and said that the officials helped West Virginia make the game close. He was fined today by the ACC.
Well, we probably should have said that as well, you know, Coach Brown. But I'm gonna give you 3 things that I took from the game, and everybody that watched it, they
Has
know
their
what
own
happened.
opinion, right?
But this is my opinion. WVU dominated that from the middle of the second quarter all the way through the third and most of the fourth. Think about this, Maris. Going into that last 2 drives of the game, they held Pitt to 4 yards of total offense in the third quarter. So they on the last 2 drives, they gave up 156.
Yeah.
Last 2 drives.
I heard Neil Brown's press conference today, 2 things that he said that, and alluded to what you just said. He said Pitt went 34 minutes of game time without scoring.
34 minutes.
And he said the biggest play, and of course, like I said, I didn't watch the game, didn't see the game. They said that West Virginia had thrown a touchdown, and he said it was a terrible call, a holding call.
Yes.
And then West Virginia went to punt, then the punt gets blocked,
Yeah, it was
and Pitt
14
scores a
points.
touchdown. So yeah, the 7 that W doesn't get,
Yes.
and the 7 that Pitt did get.
And they replayed it from 4 angles on the TV. WVU's best lineman, White Mullum, left tackle. If they call that a hold, you can call that every play. And it was one of those plays where didn't affect the play. Yeah, it was bad all around.
And I'm guessing since the game was played in Pittsburgh, that they were probably ACC officials.
Yes,
since they were the whole
definitely.
team.
That's why Narduzzi got fined because it was that crew. It was the crew from the ACC.
Well, then he should have been a little nicer because he'll probably have him again in ACC play.
I don't want that crew to do any game.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, and another thing that Neil Brown had said in his press conference, because you have more teams coming to the Big 12, more teams to the Big 10 and ACC means you need more officials, so you have to pull up maybe more unexperienced crews, and then you get games like that.
Yeah, because in a big game like that, if you think Pitt they were whistled for 12. I think WVU was whistled for 7.
I think seven. Yeah.
So that's 19 key penalties, and I'm talking about every flag came at like Pitt was doing something good. Flag.
Critical time.
Critical junctures in the game, and I like when refs are not even seen. You know, just let it be settled on the field, and I don't think it was.
Well, I will say this, and Neil Brown said this in his press conference, and I think this is important to point out. even though he pointed out, like what you're talking about, and he thought the game was officially, he thought it was poorly officiated, he said that's not why West Virginia lost. He said West Virginia still was in position to make some plays that they didn't make.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with them. We were watching, I remember 4:55 mark of the fourth quarter, they had scored. We get the ball back. All you need is one first down. I'm not saying two, because they had three timeouts plus the 2-minute warning that they call
2-minute timeout.
2-minute timeout.
Yeah.
You know, we call it warning.
Right, because the
timeout.
NFL. Yeah.
But if you get a first down, then that's when coaching comes into play. After every play after that, he would have to burn a timeout, burn another timeout, and then it flips the field. So
one thing that you and I talked about too after that game on Saturday night, West Virginia 1 and 2, their losses to Penn State and Pitt. So now they're going into conference play this week, and Kansas is coming off a loss against UNLV. They get Kansas at noon on Saturday. West Virginia can still, believe it or not, they can make the college football playoff if they win the Big 12. Now that's no easy task, but there's a lot to play for, and it's still out there in front of them.
And what kills me about our fans, WVU fans, we were preseason unranked anyway. Okay. If you look at a team like Kansas, a lot of teams, Kansas and one other Big 12 team, I can't think of it right now, but they were ranked, highly ranked coming in. Kansas is 1 and 2, fighting for their life coming in Saturday. So this matchup at 12, this is the biggest game of the year at this juncture for those teams, because it's a conference game and it's on your home field. You need to go out and win it.
Yeah, Kansas coming off of a loss to Illinois and then lost last Friday to UNLV. So both teams, you mentioned 1 or 2, and they can kind of put that behind them. You can't unring a bell. And now, like you said, conference game, kickoff at high noon.
Yeah, hey, try to get the win, get to 2 and 2 and 1 and 0 in the conference. The next thing you know, you're tied for first in the conference, and that's what matters.
Another big game at high noon, and that's Marshall at the Ohio State. And I don't know if you saw the line on this. I was talking to your father-in-law. Ohio State minus 40. A 40-point favorite. I saw that today against Marshall. That's on Fox, big noon kickoff. So Marshall's making the big time playing at Ohio State. And of course, the fact that Marshall beat Notre Dame 2 years ago, I think has made more people much aware of who Marshall is and what Marshall brings. Plus, Marshall played Ohio State really tough years ago. Yeah. Ohio State needed like a last-second field goal to beat.
It was, as time expired, they had to kick a field goal, and it was a 51-yarder. We actually looked that up. We were in Columbus a couple weeks and looked it up, because those fans seem to have amnesia, like they don't remember it.
Yeah, like 1970, they think they won the championship and they didn't. That's for another podcast.
That's another one. But anyway, I actually think, though, it's going to be tough for Marshall to move the ball or score on this Ohio State defense. I think they're for real this year, and I think defensively this is the best they've been in a few years.
Well, Ohio State's coming off a bye week, but I would like to think that I would take Marshall 40, that Marshall would not get beat by 40 or more points.
The gambler in this, all you need is a field goal, Marshall.
Well, a touchdown would help. But and of course, I didn't think Notre Dame would beat Purdue the way they beat them. It's the worst loss in Purdue history, but I just don't see Ohio State beating Marshall by 40 points. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, Marshall's defense is, at Virginia Tech, they had chances. And don't get me, Virginia Tech is no Ohio State. But Marshall's going to be, they'll put some guys out there that can play. And I think defensively, if they can slow the offense down some, 40 points is a lot of points.
Yes, and speaking of Virginia Tech, they got a big win over Old Dominion last week. They will be home to Rutgers. Rutgers undefeated 2-0, Virginia Tech 2-1.
Yeah, and this Rutgers team, a lot of people picked them to be a surprise in the Big Ten, because they got their old coach back who had left and came back, Shiano.
Right.
And he's really good for that program. They play with his toughness. And I think Rutgers gets the victory in that one.
That's a 3:30 kickoff in Blacksburg. We'll take I would say we take a break, but we don't take breaks. So I'm so used to television saying we'll take a break. We got to let you know our podcast is brought to you in part by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. Whenever you need a plumber, and like I said, you don't think about it until you actually need one, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Well, here's what you do: you pick up the phone and your cell phone. I don't think anybody has a rotary phone anymore.
That's right.
Get on your cell phone, 304. 253-HELP, and also Massey. You might have to get on a side-by-side from Massey and then ride out to Modley's and then bring them onto your house, right?
Yeah, and we also need them to what? Like, share, and subscribe.
All right, now we'll turn our gear to the National Football League. And Eric, right here in week 3, and I think one of the biggest games, maybe the biggest game, is Baltimore against Dallas. And Baltimore, after playing Kansas City down to the very last play, was a double-digit favorite at home and lost to the Raiders. And now here you look at Baltimore at 0-2 taking on Dallas, who's 1-1. Baltimore, if they don't win, could be 0-3. Dallas, if they don't win, could be 1-2. This is such a big game, and it's a home game. In fact, Dallas losing yesterday to New Orleans. Dallas had won 16 straight regular season home games. But let's see if Dallas can get back on track against Baltimore on Sunday.
Well, you have a team that's coming in that's really going to play with urgency. And I think this matchup is going to be good because, let's face it, Dallas got dominated yesterday. I didn't watch it, and I was texting. I texted my wife and said, listen, we are getting our butts kicked. I mean, that's just all it was. And I think after that happens, you got to turn it around. And Baltimore, the division they're in, they can't afford to go 0-3. They still got to play the Steelers twice. They usually always split with the Steelers. Cincinnati looks really good. I mean, and you never know what you'll get with Cleveland. You don't know what Cleveland team's going to show up.
Well, you know, I had the same discussion earlier today. Pittsburgh playing at home, their home opener. If they beat the Chargers and the Ravens lose to Dallas, Pittsburgh's 3-0 and the Ravens are 0-3 and 3 games behind. Plus, if Kansas City was to win, you know, they were talking about the Ravens trying to keep pace with the Chiefs for home field. They could be 3 games behind them.
And that's what that early in the season. These games are big because Kansas City's sitting back going, now, hey, we just snuck by Cincinnati.
Right.
We snuck by Baltimore. We don't play our best football to December. Now we got those two out of the way and let those guys fight it out. And we just, everybody comes through Arrowhead again. And you know it can get cold. We asked the Miami Dolphins about how cold it gets.
Yeah, Kansas City will be on the road against Atlanta. And I don't know if you watched the Kansas City-Cincinnati game, but I got to tell you this. And I
watched it.
Give the producers from CBS, Kansas City has a player, his last name was Taylor. They have another guy, his last name was Swift. They were standing side by side on the sideline, and they put the camera on it with Taylor Swift. How about that? Of course, everybody knows the Swifties, and maybe they're saying the Chiefs should change their name, but Kelsey, he really hasn't really picked it up. You didn't really kind of know he even played yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. I think he made one big catch, and he tried the lateral like in the middle of the field.
That got called back.
It got called back. So I don't, I'm into fantasy football a lot, but Kelsey's not doing so well as far as your fantasy football numbers.
No, and and I was telling somebody today, I said, Kansas City won that game and didn't play their best. I said, if you go in and you turn Kansas City over 2 times, you can't give up let the Chiefs score defensively. Really, Kansas City would look more beatable yesterday.
Yeah, and I think one team really has their number, and I think it's Cincinnati. I think they go back and watch the film. They're well schemed against them. Their linebackers. I think a lot of it is alignment. They get proper depth in their linebacker core, and their defensive backs play really well.
Real quick, I have a note. Washington got a win. The Commanders beat the Giants, and Washington ran the opening kickoff back. It got called back. The Giants kicker got hurt, and they didn't have a kicker, so it really changed the way the Giants played. They had to go for 2. They couldn't kick field goals, but Washington, their kicker, and I don't remember his name because he's their 5th kicker in 4 months. He set a franchise record. He made 7 field goals yesterday. They didn't get a touchdown. Washington had 7 field goals for the 21 points.
They just picked this guy up off the street.
Yeah, they just got him a couple days
last
ago.
week.
All right, we're coming down to the end. One of our favorite segments, our barking dog. Eric is 2-0. I'm 1-1. My dog, I think your dog had bite in it. My dog just barked, but it didn't bite.
Well, let's recap. My first dog was the Pittsburgh Steelers
over
on the
Atlanta.
road, and they won straight out. And my next dog was a big one, Tampa Bay Bucks, going to Detroit. And not only come out with the win.
And not only that, and you didn't know this at the time when you picked it, they had 3 offensive linemen out of that game for Tampa, and they still won on the road.
Hey, so my dogs are growling and barking.
Well, let's see who you got barking and growling this week.
So this week, guys, it's another wounded team. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins, getting 6.5 at Seattle. I know your brother's not going to like that. I don't know if they win, but when teams rally around a backup quarterback, I think they might go in. They could go in and win the game.
They could, and actually, I've seen where it bumped up to 7, so you even got an extra half a point.
That's right. I'm taking it all day.
So I won the first week. I had your Dallas Cowboys beating Cleveland outright, which they did, and the Titans. The game ended on a 4th and goal right there on the goal line where they could have tied the Jets, but it didn't. Could have, would have, should have, didn't happen. So this week, my barking dog is going to be the growl of the Bears. They're a 1.5 underdog at Indianapolis. I think they win the game straight up.
I actually looked at that one, so we're kind of on the same page. I think Indianapolis, I think their quarterback is still learning, and I like the Bears quarterback a little better than the Colts.
So we need to like,
subscribe,
and share. And this is episode 4. You may not agree with us,
but
I'm Maris Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
Until next time, have a great evening.